Good evening and welcome to our special election program at 2011. Yep, it's election time, and tonight we have representatives from the major and minor parties to tell us about their Pacific policies and why we should consider voting for them. So introducing our representatives tonight, we have the leader of New Zealand First Party, Mr. Winston Peters. Good evening. MP Sir William Seal representing Labour Party. Good evening.
Good evening.
Alfred Ngalo representing the National Party. Good evening.
Good evening.
And Whawai Nganga Moe representing the Conservative Party. Good evening.
Maro pitu.
Good evening to all of you and welcome to the program. First up, we will talk about Pacific policies. As you all know, the Pacific peoples are a fast-growing ethnic group in New Zealand. And along with growth comes a need to provide support, including better education, better healthcare, better living and better economic well-being. For years, Pacific people have struggled in the low socio-economic bracket. The cost of living is becoming a tremendous burden. Our health continues to struggle, such as diabetes, obesity and poor general health overall. If they want to vote a party or candidate in, they want to make sure they will address their issues and more. So let me start with you, Alfred Ngalo, representative from National Party. Does your party have any specific policies for Pacific people? And if so, what are they and how will they benefit the Pacific people?
Thank you. Kia ora tātou kātou tō mātua tētua, and it's great to be here this evening. Our party, the National Party, definitely has specific policies. Being a first-generation born Cook Islander that's here, the most important thing that our people came here is for education, and education has been one of the most important things. One of the key strategies for the National Party is around education, and particularly starting with early childhood education. So there's been about $1.4 billion invested this year alone into early childhood education. It's really clear out of the Peter Gluckman report that investing in early childhood is important for the future of our children. And so another $550 million has been invested in that particularly, especially around increasing participation for our communities into early childhood education. So that's one of the areas that's been quite particular. Health has also been another issue as well that's been quite critical for us. And one of the things that's come out from the public, our Pacific public in particular, is around sort of elective surgeries. And so we've increased elective surgeries alone. Over 2,000 elective surgeries that have been increased under better, sooner, more convenient strategy under Minister Ryle as well. I think what's been quite clear about that is that our Pacifica and our public at large have said, look, enough of the bureaucracy, let's ensure that we've got frontline staff that are there to be able to improve the services that we deliver to our people as well.
Conservative Party.
One of the key things that we started, and the reason why the Pacific Issues New Zealand movement have combined with the Conservative Party to run candidates in this election, is because regardless of the rhetoric, and over the last even 3 years, the last 30 years, things haven't gone well for our Pacific peoples. And we need to have a specific voice that advocates for this at the decision-making table. We haven't had that. One of the things that, I have a lot of personal things that I know that our people are telling us in terms of education, wealth creation, job creation, and also in terms of health. But the key thing that we want to advocate for is education. The success of our communities, the success of our people is in quality education, right from birth and to the grave. It should be the norm to be able to have success in it. And we know there are circumstances where our people have come through. We want to model that even more. And what we're also saying is for the 20% that are falling through the gaps, we want to be able to articulate quite clearly community solutions to help these out. One of the things that saddens me is that a lot of the community initiatives that do work have been cut by not only the current government, but governments in the past. The community know the issues. We're not silly, but we also know the solutions, and some of these programs have worked. It's important that as a government, we're able to enable those things that do work.
Some more questions about that later. Winston Peter.
There are a lot of Pacific people from different islands, different cultures here, but there's a common set of things that they all want. They want a decent health system. They want a decent education and skills system for their offspring, their young children, and those ones that are growing up. They want a decent first world wage system that ensures that they get decent employment and wages that you can survive on with one job, not two, not three jobs, just trying to make a living. And they want decent housing so that you can look after your families and yourself in safe, secure conditions. Those four things are what they want. And they want a country that can give them a position and a place and work where they don't live to work, which is creeping in all the time now, into the weekends, long over hours and what have you, but where they work to live, that is, they work to have enough income to live a decent life for themselves and their family and their wara, whānau or whono, or whichever island you're talking about, and be able to play a role in a social society. And we in New Zealand First believe that that is fundamentally not a fair go.
Now, faith plays a large part in the lives of Pacific people. What stance do you hold? Are you a Christian? Do you follow a faith? Or are you an atheist or agnostic? Where do you stand on the faith issue?
Well, I'm not a fool, and so I have a faith, yes. I happen to be a Protestant, but if I'd been born a Catholic, I'd be proud to be that. And it is big amongst the Pacific people because it is, amongst other things, the pathway to heaven, the way they see it and we see it. And second, it binds families and binds communities and gives them values and thoughts and principles to uphold. A lot of people will say that they believe in that, but they certainly do not show it in their daily dealings with other people. I think the Pacific people have that in common as well.
How about you?
When our Pacifica first came here, we started off by collectively meeting in the churches. I was part of the PIC Newton Church in Edinburgh Street up in K Road, where I grew up there in Ponsonby. And so faith is an important part of our belief structures, and churches have become an important part of where our people can gather. It holds the values that are actually absolutely important to our Pacifica people. I think it's important, though, it's about how do we use that faith in ways that those values that we take out into developing strategies that are important for us. A number of churches at the moment are setting up early child education centres because they're seeing the broadening of their faith different to what we had in the islands to what we have now. So it's more of a holistic approach to the way we're approaching life. And so we're seeing that faith is no longer just something we do in a time and a place, but it's what we take with us in our life and all the things and all the dealings that we have. And so we're remembered by not just about what we've done, but how we've treated people, and that becomes important to us and to our Pacifica community as well.
Thank you, Alfred.
Do I have a faith? Yes, I have a very strong faith, and I've never known a life without God present, you know, and to me, that's one of the key things that makes us who we are, you know. As a people, before Christianity, we had a faith as well, connected to the land. That's what defines us as Pacific, as Polynesian. And then we've come to New Zealand, the land of milk and honey, and we've also been introduced to Christianity. I was brought up a first generation Seventh Adventist in Ponsonby. My mother was schooled in a Catholic church. So we had a very interesting time at home. Growing up, one goes through a journey in life, and you discover that you actually, not all of us can be church ministers. Not all of us can be pastors or whatever, but trying to find that which you can do to highlight and to articulate your faith in action, to improve our communities, to improve the well-being of our people, and to acknowledge that faith without action is actually quite, you know, a dead faith.
So a faith, etc., where do you stand?
I'm a Christian, and for the first time this year, the Labour Party has established the Interfaith Dialogue Policy, which is a policy that my colleagues Lord Manuel Winnie Laban and Ashraf Chowdhury initiated, and so we released a policy which recognises that New Zealand does have a Christian heritage that should be recognised and acknowledged and celebrated, but we also recognise that there's a diversity of other faiths in New Zealand, and we need to build bridges of understanding and appreciation. That's the first part of that policy. The second part is recognising that the interfaith community do exist in New Zealand, and there are branches the length and breadth of New Zealand, and it's about supporting the work that they do. Again, it's about building peace, better understanding, and preventing some of the riots that have occurred in other parts of the world. And the final part is about supporting programs of education around the promotion of peace and conflict resolution, both at university level, but we should also be looking at the community level and promoting those things.
Thank you, Sir. This is for you, Alfred. Your party promised that they would not increase GST during the last campaign, but you did. Mm-hmm. A lot of Pacific people are suffering because of the high cost of living. What makes you think we believe you this time?
Well, as our leader, John Key, sort of said, that under economic recession and the difficult times that we've faced, what we found is that there was a need to be able to adjust that accordingly. And so one of the things that we've done is that, but look, the other part of the economic tax base, which is also the full tax packages have been released, there's 120 points that are on there. And so what we've done is that we've managed to ensure that we've increased the aspects of the need for a lot of our Pacifica people around that. So to me, that's answering those sorts of issues for our Pacifica community.
Is there anyone here who would like to comment?
Well, most certainly. The fact is that Mr. Key promised not to increase taxation, and he put it up from 12.5% to 15% on the very people who have no disposable income for luxuries. That is, they're buying essentials, and so it impacts far harder on the low income and the very poorly income people. It's been really tough. Wild food prices, power, everything's going through the roof. And he said, and you just heard that the reason is, Mr. Key told you, and it's repeated tonight, I'm very pleased it was repeated tonight by the national candidate, that it was because of the economic circumstances. So how do you explain the billions he gave to the wealthy for tax cuts, where some people like the guy that heads Westpac on over $5 billion gets $5,000 cut a week on top of his income? Now you see, you can't get away with that when you analyse the facts.
So if voted in, are you going to bring down the GST?
No doubt about it. It's part of our policy. 12.5% GST in the first instance, and we have always had an aspiration for 10%. And across that, we get rid of a secondary tax, which impacts very hard on Pacific people, because a lot of them have got one or two or three jobs trying to make a go of it. And the third thing is we're going to get rid of GST on rates, and we'll also take the tax off the first lot of savings. Because even if you try and save now, so it's in the bank, they give you 4%, inflation's 4.5%, and they whack you for 33% on top of that. You're going backwards so fast, no matter how you poor you are. So we believe we've got a policy that is fair to everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
And Labour's position is that we've got to put money into people's pockets, we've got to create jobs, and the three policies that will resonate with Pacific communities is first raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. That generates some income in people's hands. Secondly is to remove GST of fresh fruits and vegetables. Everybody knows that that can be done, and that's a good starting point, giving people healthy choices. And there's no tax on the first $5,000 of income earned. Together, that package gives about $100 extra a week into the hands of ordinary hard-working families. But in the long term, I think we've got to be looking at investing in our young people. In particular, Pacific communities have a huge population of young people. National would rather see these young people into boot camps, and they want to probably sweep them under the carpet. But we say, look, that's the future of this country. And we want to ensure that they have education, employment, training opportunities, apprenticeships, and will support employers.
That National's got a brighter future for them. It's all over the place. They've got a brighter future for them.
Thank you so much.
That's right.
But it's in Australia.
That's right.
You know, and it's true. Winston Peters is referring to the what's it, the 100,000 that continually go across, you know, to Australia to look for work. And you know what, I listen to the two major parties, I'm constantly reaffirmed and reminded why I'm standing. Because all this we've heard before, and it always comes out from the two major parties when it comes to election time. We've got this, and this. And sometimes, you know, some of these parties sound really good in opposition, but when they get in, the truth be told, it's totally different. What I want to suggest is from the Pacific Island communities, we're hurting. You know, we've got less money coming in and a lot more money going out. how do we make ends meet? You know, we need more jobs in this place. There are no jobs. We need jobs. It's up to the Pacific communities to demand that there be jobs. How can we do that? I envisage if we start looking at small business, and we grew up with two things in mind. One, our parents told us, seek good education so that you can be successful, or start a business. You know, there's a lot of small entrepreneurial businessmen out there. Imagine if we had 100 new businesses, entrepreneurial businesses that started up in New Zealand, owned by New Zealanders, employed New Zealanders, money that stayed in New Zealand. The second thing is, there's so many taxes. You know, one of the taxes that confuses me a lot is why the heck are we paying emissions trading scheme tax, the ETS scheme? Can you imagine if we get 5% discount on our milk and our cheese and all that? What's the use of taking your GST on fruit and veggies when the fuel, the power still cost us? You know, I'd like to see the removal and the repeal of that tax because it's a silly tax. The last thing I'd like to see, and I think the Conservative Party pushes for, is tax-free threshold. You know, when we look at the breakup of incomes that we receive, our low and middle income people are the ones that get wasted all the time. We're the ones that hurt, you know, the ones under 25,000. Wouldn't it be great if we had a tax-free threshold of 25,000?
Okay, 1 minute.
I'd suggest that none of us are here actually on 25,000. But anyway, the tax rebates that have been given mean that 3/4 of taxpayers now are actually on 17.5% income tax. So that's what we've got at the moment. In regards to the 100,000, well, what we don't talk about is that over the period of the 9 years that Labour in government, there were 300,000. So actually, it's been an ongoing trend. We'll debate the issue.
It's very easy to go back and forth.
The issue around
the
transition of people moving to Australia actually has been an ongoing trend. So it's not what you're all about there, but we're hearing about. In fact, the trade academies are what we've increased, and we're seeing more of our Māori Pacific are taking up those opportunities.
But we are talking about the promise that you and your party promised to us last time, and you didn't keep it.
Well, again, this can be debated whether the promise was kept.
Well, you never kept the promise. He made it solemnly. He said, virtually, read my lips, we will not increase taxation. And the immigration to Australia, when he talks about a brighter future, he's actually talking about Australia, not us. Because you can see what the biggest numbers have ever left this country since 1977. Don't try and say it was the same for the last 3 years. I mean, what the National Party is doing, and other parties, is fill up their candidates with a whole lot of research and go out and say, get on the stage and don't stop talking, because you'll get past the competition. Sorry, tonight it's showtime, and people want to know out there around the Pacific, and some of us understand what poverty tastes and smells like. We've been through it,
absolutely,
and know how tough it is.
Tāninga Kās, ai kautaha kā whiatako ni taha ki o tau kāinga tonga I loto o kalani. Kalau ke kautaha kā maa mo whakatu I honototongi, Tāninga Kās. Whia mau ha 4-wheel drive, kalas ke heke whiunga moi kuonga, Tāninga Kās. Ka pau ku ke whia mau ha ven na lahi whiunga mo ho family, toi mau pe moia me he Tāninga Kās.
Koia, kata ko telefoni mai rewa, he telefoni ua fitu noa, whanoa, pe ko hautonu mai ke whikatahiwa hala princesi o tahuhu. Ka pau mo whekatawa mo mea lere, I waa tāti kākāsi papatoetoe, pa mo mea mai ka te au, te vita whakatai ka wuka. Ko tua sila ko whikatolu walo he Istamaki Road I papatoetoe, whika telefoni ko ua fitu walo, noa ua hiwanima. Nau hau he waa whoki mai he waa whamaano, nau whaambe ke iai ha mo dui whare, ko hiko ku ofe fine mo ki foha I New Zealand. Pena aku alu ke panke o whainga haku lon, haku no, pena I kai ke mao ha no, ko hine fu kovi au pito hoku kuretiti. Nā aku whainga holo he ngahi finance ke heke, na I kai ke lawa ke nau toko ni iau. Pea whainga maare o alu ke he self-specific loan, pena u loto le rei ke toko ni iau. Pea nā hangarewa o update ku kuretiti, pea whoki atu ke he panke, ko le leia kuretiti, pena u loto ke omi e ku no, pea whakatawa ia apiko e nipa ko fuuwhiawhia lahi au pito.
Te tutaka mai rewa he taimini, I he noa walu nge au, walu, hiwa walu, pe ko ho au tonu mai pe ki ho mau ofisi, Cavendish Drive I Manukau City.
Parkinson and Bell School. Ua wawa makakoloa mo makamahu inga ai Parkinson and Bell School. Pia tapa pe o mamani kehebe ke whiau aho fie mau makawhakamanatu. I o tangane he ko laka hake I he tau e te autupu e mau whai whatongia I he malai o e tātongitongi. Pia teu I ho makawhakamanatu o whakatatau ki ho fie mau pia moho o Patseti. E tō taki hake lewa ki he Parkinson and Bell School I he whika telefoni o e ono tolu, tonu nge au. Pe ka ho au tonu hake pe ki ha taha ho mau ngahi ofisi I he ofisi I o Nehanga, North Shore, Glen Eden, o Tara, Taulanga, pia ko mau office for o e taha I a lot of shopping centre o Otahoho. Whiri ai Parkinson and Bell School ko urake whai tu o ia ke ahia I ho fie mau makawha manatu kotoa pe. Parkinson and Bell School I e whika telefoni ono tolu, tolu ngeau. GM Car Wholesalers. Yep, GM Cars. Ko ngai mea ko yok tai malawa ke whakahoko e ngai kautaka ke, ok malawa ia e GM Cars. Ko ki motolo o ko kovi ho mo kureti te whakatau, whawhitu take mai lewa ki he GM Cars mo Tipo City. Pia ko ki motolo ko yok mo fie whakatau ha mo me alele I heni, kai whakafulawa tu ki tonga, o ko toi malawa pe mo ia e GM Cars. Whaingo fua ke whakaki ki kotoa be whitu take ki GM Cars.
Mo mea mai ke GM Car, ko toa silanga mahe ni pe foke ni mataha he Great South Road. Fe mau ke whakatau ha mo mea lele, ven ke whamiri, ka lalahi ka ik, mau ko toa I heni. Mo whetu tak mai ka Olivia Tausinga, whika telefoni tami ngā we, no ahiva, ua whitu ono, ua.
Ara Memorials has a new showroom. Same quality headstones, same excellent service. Open from 9 till 5, Monday to Friday, and Saturday 9 till 1. So visit us on the corner of Ramfrilly and Cavendish Drive, Manukau, or call us on 09 250 1304. Ara Memorials, now in Manukau.
Moving on to some questions from our Pacific viewers, and they have given us some questions for me to ask you guys. And this question is from Mr. Sitaleki Tupo, who lives in Mangere, directed at you, Whawai Ngangamoe.
Nice.
Which of...
Isn't he a member of the Conservative Party?
Is he? Oh, okay.
He should have asked you this morning.
Actually, I didn't give him my number. My number is...
What is PINZ, P-I-N-Z?
Yep.
Aren't you a rehash of Title Phillip, Field's original Pacific Party? Is Title Phillip part of PINZ, Conservative Pacific of New Zealand? And 2, you are campaigning to be a second voice for Pacific people in Mangere in Parliament, yet the majority of Pacific peoples other than Samoans only see you as another voice for Samoans and not truly representative of Pacific peoples. What do you say?
Firstly, I don't know if Tato's a member. We're not a rehash of the New Zealand, is it the Pacific Party? Yeah. And what was the other question?
You're claiming that you are the second voice for Pacific people.
Yeah, I think if we vote strategically, this goes down to the system that we're under, which is MMP. In Mangere, we have the very hard-working William Sua, who's been there for a long time. And as a Pacific Islander, as a Samoan, Tongan, and I'll get to that in a second, I think it's important that we honour those who are before us and that we work collectively together, because Mangere deserves to have more than one voice in Parliament. All our South Auckland, West Auckland communities deserve that if we were to do it strategically. Can you imagine if 2 came out of Munro or 2 came out of Manukau East, 2 came out, and Winston knows he's laughing because this is the way that MMP should be going.
I'll tell you why I'm laughing, because there's no accident that you 2 are wearing blue rosettes. The Conservative Party is a national party front, just like the ACT Party is. And I know a lot of the people I've done my research into the background.
Research as well, Winston. That's interesting.
Well, it's my proposition I'm trying to put out now, and you can answer when I finish. But Mr. Craig, your leader, is going around saying that I can win Rodney, and everybody else in every political party thinks that's a joke, and that's the why you should desert New Zealand first and come to me. Now, if you come from a Christian party, you should not commence. I don't blame you. I blame him. You should not commence your attack if you come from a Christian party and believe in Christian principles with a downright lie. New Zealand First is going through the roof, as you know, in the polls, and he's saying, oh, come over to us because I can win a seat. Now, find somebody in Rodney who believes that. And you know he can't beat your man up there, don't you?
What do you say?
If this was a debate between Winston and Colin Craig, my line is this. I'd say that it's important for us. It's important for us to win Rodney.
He's your father.
I'll move on to the next question. I'll move on to the next question.
It's important that you vote for Whaingangamoe in Mangere, because as Winston and New Zealand First have said, I'm the guy that should be the leader of the Conservatives.
Okay, I'll move on to the next question. It's directed at you, Whawai. Which of the other major parties are you aligned with? Why don't you join that party now and be a candidate so that you don't waste the voters' vote?
Okay, there's two things there. One, we're not aligned to any party.
No?
Even if Winston is shaking his head now just in the distance there, and the others are laughing, no, we're not aligned to any particular party at the moment. Secondly, I just wanted to go back because I forgot to answer the question about my Tonganness before Winston took 30 minutes again to describe. And this is not a news. I hope there's editing on this. My name Whawai comes from Whanga. And I discovered this also from my father, who said, son, it's not Whawai le tua Samoa. For 30 years I thought it was all Samoan. And he says, no, it's from Tonga. So I have a connection to Whanga, and I'm proud of it. Although many times over I say this to a lot of people and they go, yeah, maybe the nose and the ears.
And there's no fellowship of the rings. We're not connected just because there are colours of blue. In fact, if you actually look at some of the policies and also you'll see that there's some open criticism towards the National Party by their leader.
Just like the ACT Party.
So,
down the back door.
Okay.
If anybody knows back door.
Secret cup of tea.
The next few questions are directed at Labour candidate from an anonymous PA person.
Oh, jeebus. Should we be answering anonymous PI questions?
The Labour Party has recently been in government for 9 very long years, yet Pacific people's economic situation, crime statistics, health, youth problems and well-being simply have gotten worse. Why should we believe Labour this time?
In 9 years, Labour has unfinished business when it comes to talking about alleviating poverty for our families. We've laid out a framework of things policies that we are prepared to put a stake on the ground and say that in terms of raising minimum wage, in terms of no taxation, in terms of removing GST, those are fundamental. They resonate with our communities. We have unfinished business in terms of alleviating poverty for families with children, and we've released our policy around children that's pretty comprehensive and it's been discussed and debated. And I do take issue when the national candidate says about that we didn't do anything for children. 100,000 children were alleviated from poverty, but as we said, still unfinished business. Look, at the end of the day, people got to make up their choices. I agree with Winston. It's no accident that those two have
They're already starting to agree.
The other question is, how do you reconcile the Labour Party often controversial social engineering agendas that the faith of Pacific peoples who voted for them to be in Parliament?
I think you've got to recognise that political parties in Parliament are made up of people of all walks of life, different beliefs. We recognise that New Zealand has people with Christian beliefs, Hinduism, Buddhism. You've also got about 34% of the population who do not believe in God. And so when it comes to some of those issues, they are up to individuals. And I've been quite clear within my own party about how I stand on some of those issues. But at the end of the day, in Parliament, the majority rules.
Winston Peters, this is a question from lawyer Fatu. Why would you say New Zealand First is the best party for Pacific peoples?
Well, first of all, we got one law for everyone, the same law. We don't say if you go down to the beach and because you come from the Cook Islands or Pacific, you can't go onto it because you're not a local iwi or the local people from that iwi. That's what National's saying right now. And we don't have a law that says you'll salute 2 flags, one will be our New Zealand flag for all of us, and then one for the Maori people, which is what Don Key has done. Now he's got a separate social welfare policy coming up. Whānau Ora, you can't go to that. None of the Pacific people can. Separate justice system, separate prison system is coming. I've never seen so much separation. It doesn't include the Pacific people, who after all, under DNA, are our cousins who are Maori.
Is that the reason why you think your party
Well,
is
it includes
best for
Pacific peoples. We know why they came. They came for their families and for hope and for a promise we made. You work hard here, you can live the New Zealand dream. But if you look at which party has looked at the Pacific and said, we want to focus on our neighbourhood, not 3/4 of around the world, but on our neighbourhood, and we'll put the aid there and put it in there in the sufficient amount to make it work, that party is New Zealand First, and Mr. CEO knows that under Labour Party and Helen Clark's leadership. But I, as the Foreign Minister, made that demand as part of my portfolio, and I'm pleased to say I got acceptance of it and it was delivered.
Well, that's all we have time for on tonight's program. Next week, we will have part 2 of this discussion. Remember, voting day is on the 26th of November, so make sure you're enrolled and you can find out how to do that and how to vote on the official election website, www.elections.org.nz. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.